Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated in Ben 10 World as Ben's cousin. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 91, The Feeling of Resistance. Zomboso let out a shrill, blood-curdling scream, staggering backward as if he'd just seen a ghost. His face turned pale, his legs trembling uncontrollably. What kind of monster are you? You're terrifying. As a clown who thrived on devouring human joy, he'd always considered himself frightening enough. But now, he realized there were creatures even more horrifying than him. You're not scared of this ordinary little ghost, are you? Ghost Freak said in a chilling tone as he slowly drifted closer. He wasn't afraid of clowns anymore. Seeing the ghastly spirit closing in, Zomboso hurriedly pulled out a handful of streamers and threw them into the air. Don't run, loser! Ghost Freak roared, swinging his fist toward the panicked Zomboso. Bye! The thick bundle of streamers exploded with a sharp pop, bursting into colorful confetti. Zomboso vanished instantly, leaving only a rain of shimmering ribbons fluttering to the ground. Oh man! I wanted to play a bit longer. Ghost Freak scratched his head. The big chill hovered in the air, his ghostly form flickering in and out of sight. Arms crossed, he said coldly. All right, Ben. Let's go. Grandpa and the others are still waiting for us. Got it. Ghost Freak nodded, grinning. I'm not scared of that clown anymore. If Zomboso dares to show up again, I'll give him a real beating. Big Chill nodded slightly. It seemed Ben had finally overcome his fear. With Zomboso fleeing in panic and the cyclone destroyed, the battle was over. After making sure no remnants were left behind, Big Chill and Ghost Freak phased into their spectral forms, slipping through the thick layers of soil and heading straight for the surface. Since the tunnel housing the cyclone machine wasn't far below ground, the two quickly emerged, greeted once more by the soft glow of moonlight. Big Chill's icy blue wings fluttered with quiet grace as he turned toward Ghost Freak. Ben, head back to the rust bucket. I'll check if that circus freak is still around. Though he couldn't kill them, that didn't mean Lucian had no way of handling them. At least with someone timid like Eliza, he had his own methods. Letting these people off too easily wouldn't teach them anything. The circus crew had long grown addicted to the thrill of taking what wasn't theirs. They needed a firm reminder. But, Ghost Freak began, but the Omnitrix on his chest started flashing red. A blinding light burst out, and in an instant, he reverted to his human form as Ben. He stood stiffly on the withered lawn, motionless. What's wrong? Are you hurt? Big Chill's wings beat gently, sending a chill through the air as he floated closer. Could he have been injured during the fight? Ben stared at his hands in confusion, shaking his head. 'Cause I'm fine. It's just, this feeling's really weird. I don't know why, but when I changed back just now, I felt resistant. Like when you're about to win a game of sumo slammers and Grandpa tells you it's bedtime. Big Chill's eyes narrowed. This wasn't a good sign. He had thought the replica Omnitrix was completely safe, which was why he'd let Ben use it. But now, it didn't seem that way. And with the Omnitrix already fused to Ben's wrist, taking it off wouldn't be easy. After a moment's pause, the Big Chill croaked. Try to transform into Ghost Freak less often from now on, understand? Fine. Ben shrugged, sighing helplessly. Even though Ghost Freak is terrifying, I think it's pretty cool. It's dangerous. The Big Chill shook her head slightly. Hey, cuz, remember that Ghost Freak that escaped from your watch? After it possessed Kevin last time, it hasn't shown up again. Wonder where it went now. Ben paused, glancing down at his Omnitrix. I wonder if the Ghost Freak in my watch might escape too. Don't worry too much. Just stay vigilant. The Big Chill scooped up Ben and soared through the night sky. Listen to me, just avoid transforming into Ghost Freak. If it really does escape, we'll just catch it again. Though he said this, from Ben's blind spot, the Big Chill's gaze was unusually grave, a feeling Ben had never sensed before. Currently, Ghost Freak was possessing Kevin, its whereabouts unknown. What if the two joined forces? Or worse, what if Kevin was completely controlled by Ghost Freak, becoming a ghostly version of Kevin 11? Combined with Ben's earlier concern about another specter appearing, the situation would become truly perilous. A single Ghost Freak was already troublesome enough. Two would be unbearable. Of course, such futile worries were pointless. The greater the crisis, the more urgently Lucian craved to grow stronger. Lost in thought, Big Chill had already carried Ben back to the circus camp. After the battle between Diamond Head and the circus freak, the place was now a desolate wasteland, utterly ravaged. Torn tents, giant beast footprints, pools of corrosive acid, and shards of emerald crystal littered the dark, muddy ground. Stay here. I'll be back soon. With that, the Big Chill transformed into a blue phantom, swiftly darting through the debris to search for the circus trio. Moments later, the Big Chill returned, finding no trace of the others, likely already long gone. Just as Ben was about to respond, the Big Chill suddenly grabbed him again, enveloping him in a chill as they soared toward the distant highway. But when they landed, they found nothing unusual except a frozen rhinoceros and a path paved with ice. "Cuz, why did you bring me here?" Ben asked, puzzled. The Big Chill scanned the surroundings, then sighed. "Looks like that little girl got away. Let's head back." When the two returned to the rust bucket, they found Gwen and Grandpa had fully recovered. All traces of the fatigue and drowsiness they'd felt during the performance vanished. Not only that, but the townspeople had also returned to normal. Their eyes were bright and alert as they bustled along the crowded pedestrian street, chatting and laughing, their merriment filling the air. Ben sat in the passenger seat, his expression fired up as he excitedly recounted his heroic deeds underground to Grandpa and Gwen, and of course, Lucian's timely rescue. Gwen snorted lightly, retorting without hesitation. "I bet it was Cuz who took down the clown. You, with your doofus ways, would have been scared out of your wits." She even made a silly face to tease Ben across from her. "No way! I did my part too," Ben protested indignantly. All right. Grandpa Max believes you both did great," Grandpa Max said with a kind, gentle smile. Chatting and laughing, they drove the rust bucket away from the town under the morning glow, heading toward their next destination. Chapter 92, Hex. Inside the glass case lay one of the greatest discoveries of the century, the peerless, priceless Arcamida Book of Spells. In the ancient museum, an elderly tour guide spoke in a slow, weary tone as she introduced the rare collection. Her voice was so monotonous that Lucian nearly dozed off beside her. "Cool! I know about the Arcamida Book of Spells." Gwen's eyes sparkled as she fixed her gaze on the spell book inside the glass case. "It contains every ancient spell and incantation recorded since the late 15th century. It's a treasure every wizard dreams of owning." "Oh, please, nerd. If it's that amazing, how come no one's stolen it yet?" Ben rolled his eyes. Gwen smacked him lightly on the head. "Idiot. Museums have security, obviously. Regular wizards can only pull off simple tricks to fool kids. How could they possibly steal the Arcamida Book of Spells?" "That might be true, but I still think such a priceless tome shouldn't be kept here," Grandpa Max said, stroking his chin thoughtfully. The old museum was steeped in history, filled with the murmurs of curious visitors moving from exhibit to exhibit. The air carried a heavy sense of age as people gawked at artifacts they'd never heard of, let alone seen in person. Among the displays were the scepter of an ancient Egyptian pharaoh, the monkey's paw sealed within an iron gauntlet, the sword Aim no Murakumo, the armor of a holy knight, the eternal spear Gungnir, the Holy Grail, the star coin, and even the cursed doll Annabelle. As the crowd grew thicker, Grandpa Max began to sweat. The air was heavy and stuffy, filled with heat and the unpleasant mix of body odor and carbon dioxide. He wiped his forehead. Let's go somewhere else. It's too hot in here. My old bones can't handle this anymore. Awesome! Finally, we're getting out of this place. It's so boring! Ben cheered, practically ready to turn into XLR8 and dash through the crowd. Lucian, could you help keep an eye on Gwen and Ben? Grandpa asked with a kind smile. They're short, so they might get pushed back in the crowd. No need, Grandpa. I got this. Ben pounded his chest, only to be shoved aside by a burly man, nearly falling right into Lucian's arms. Gwen, her orange hair and green eyes catching the museum's dim light, brushed her bangs aside and whispered shyly. This doesn't feel right. It's too much trouble for Lucian. It's fine. Let's just get out of here first. Lucian smiled calmly. Standing at about 5 feet 10 inches, he easily towered over most of the crowd. Protecting 2 10-year-olds was no problem at all. With you around, Lucian, this old man can finally relax. Grandpa Max chuckled, a note of admiration in his voice. But just as Lucian was about to lead them out, his feet suddenly felt weightless. His body lost its anchor to the ground, floating upward toward the museum ceiling like a drifting feather. What's going on? Lucian's expression sharpened as he looked around. To his shock, everyone else in the museum was also suspended midair, as though the earth had suddenly lost its gravity. The crowd erupted into chaos. Faces went pale as screams, cries for help, and terrified wails filled the vast hall. Help! Somebody, please! Oh my God, I must be dreaming! I'm totally telling my girlfriend about this when I wake up. What's happening? Did Earth turn into the moon? This is bad. Don't tell me the museum artifacts are behind this. People suspended in midair kicked their legs desperately, but it was useless. They were frozen in place, unable to return to the ground. Cuz, what's happening? Gwen cried out in panic, glancing anxiously at Lucian beside her. Did the museum's gravity just vanish? Lucian looked down, then shook his head. No. The exhibits haven't moved. And that tissue on the floor hasn't either. This isn't gravity. It's affecting only the people inside the museum, making all of us float. After a quick, calm analysis, Lucian came to the conclusion without losing his composure like the others. So what now? Ben drifted up and down in the air, staring at the Omnitrix on his wrist. He was already thinking about turning into Stinkfly to save everyone. At that moment, Grandpa Max frowned slightly, about to say something, when his pupils suddenly shrank. At the museum's entrance, a strange figure stepped slowly inside. He was gaunt and pale, draped in a dark crimson robe. A necklace hung from his neck, inlaid with a glowing stone. In his hand he held a gray wand shaped like an open bird's beak, as though it could unleash deadly magical energy at any moment. A chilling, sinister aura surrounded him. It was Hex. Lucian recognized him instantly. The man's power was formidable, especially when he possessed the charms of Bezel. The Arcamida Book of Spells is mine now, Hex declared, striding straight toward the glass display case. Fada me duf! He chanted an incantation, and the reinforced glass shattered instantly. Countless shards rained down like crystal raindrops, scattering across the museum's tiled floor. Seeing the intruder about to seize the tome, Ben clenched his fists and shouted, Freak! I'm not letting you steal the Arcamida Book of Spells! It's the Arcamida Book of Spells, Gwen sighed helplessly. Whatever! He's not leaving here today! Ben slammed down on the Omnitrix. Thud! A burst of eerie green light flashed, instantly drawing Hex's attention. Metin waits! Hex raised his gray wand high, chanting an ancient, obscure spell that echoed through the entire museum. Whoosh! As the final syllable fell, a powerful wind surged in all directions, dispelling the levitation magic over everyone in the building. The crowd hanging in the air suddenly plummeted like falling dumplings, crashing toward the hard tile floor below. Screams erupted everywhere. The roaring wind shrieked in their ears, striking fear deep into their hearts. From this height, nearly 2 stories, anyone landing headfirst would be doomed. Among the fallen crowd was Ben, who had just transformed into Upgrade. His gelatinous body stretched outward, wrapping Gwen and Grandpa Max in his embrace. Enveloping them completely, he morphed into a black and green sphere, hurtling toward the ground. He had intended to turn into XLR8, but his faulty Omnitrix had other ideas. Now he was Upgrade, unable to protect everyone else. At this critical moment, he could only focus on shielding those closest to him. Just as the crowd was about to hit the ground, a blue blur swept past above them, wings spread wide, releasing a surge of icy air. Chapter 93: The Power of the Charms of Bezel. Whoosh! From Big Chill's mouth burst a torrent of freezing air that condensed beneath the falling crowd, forming a vast, crystalline curtain of ice. It spread like a dreamlike blue galaxy, instantly dispelling the museum's stifling heat as a cool wind swept across the hall. Amid the chorus of terrified screams, panicked visitors slid down the glittering sheet of ice and landed safely on the ground. Thanks to the icy curtain's cushioning effect, most escaped with nothing worse than minor sprains, a far better outcome than the carnage that could have been. But when they spotted the terrifying sorcerer, and the blue moth-like creature hovering above, screams rang out again. Chaos erupted as people scattered in all directions, scrambling for the museum's exit. Upgrade reverted to human form and released the 2 trapped inside the sphere. Gwen gasped for air, panting. "Geez, doofus, I almost suffocated in there." "But thanks." Grandpa Max caught his breath, his eyes narrowing as he turned toward Lucian and Hex locked in combat. His expression grew tense. "Ben, go help your cousin." He glanced around, spotted a sword in an exhibit case, drew it out, and let a faint smile tug at his lips. High above, Big Chill floated in the air, exhaling a wave of icy breath. The frost-laden air surged forward, carrying a cutting chill as it hurtled toward Hex. "Birdie Mordonata!" As the words rang out, Hex raised his gray, bird-beak-shaped wand. The charmed stone on his chest blazed to life, unleashing a torrent of roaring flame from the wand's tip. The scorching fire met the freezing air head-on. Whoosh! One side blazed with searing flames, the other shimmered with piercing cold. The collision unleashed a shockwave that rippled through the air, whipping the curtains wildly like frenzied witches in a storm. The violent blast shattered the glass display cases below, sending shards scattering across the floor in glittering showers. Big Chill beat his wings harder, amplifying the freezing gusts until they overpowered Hex's flames. The icy blast swallowed the fire completely and shot straight toward the sorcerer. "Hero time!" Upgrade appeared below them. From the green circle on his head, a beam of energy erupted, blasting Hex backward and slamming him into the window frame of the museum. Perfect chance. Seeing the opening, Big Chill unleashed another surge of cold, like an enraged ice dragon, trying to freeze Hex solid. But the floor tiles near Hex suddenly lifted and stacked themselves in front of him, barely blocking the attack. Crack! Dozens of tiles froze solid under the biting cold and shattered to pieces as they hit the floor, scattering like broken glass. Hex rose to his feet. Among the charms of Bezel hanging on his chest, one pendant glowed brightly, its golden surface etched with complex runes. "The charm of levitation!" Big Chill's eyes narrowed. So that was how Hex had suspended everyone in the museum earlier. "Water Dragon's soul!" Gwen stood her ground, unflinching before the sinister mage. She chanted a water magic incantation and raised her hand, summoning a fierce dragon of swirling water vapor that roared and lunged toward Hex. "Ancient water magic? Fascinating!" Hex sneered, then said coldly. "But compared to my clever niece, you're still far behind." He slammed his wand against the ground. Thud! A radiant purple barrier erupted around him, swirling with shimmering light and dense magical energy. The water dragon crashed against the barrier, rippling it with force before dissolving into mist that slowly faded into nothing. "Is that all you've got?" Hex sneered coldly, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. And me! A voice suddenly rang out from behind. Unnoticed, Grandpa Max had quietly slipped up behind Hex. Raising the legendary sword, he swung it with all his strength at his opponent. The magnificent blade gleamed brilliantly, its sharp edge exuding an air of royal authority as it came crashing down on the purple barrier. Snap! A crisp sound echoed through the hall as the ancient sword shattered cleanly. It failed to even stir a ripple before breaking into two useless chunks of metal that clattered onto the cold floor. Guess museum artifacts aren't always genuine. Grandpa Max turned and bolted, his movements surprisingly quick for someone his age. Hex's face darkened. He raised his wand, unleashing a bolt of crimson energy that shot out like a venomous serpent, lashing viciously toward Grandpa Max's back. Grandpa! Gwen shouted anxiously. Whoosh! A sharp blast of frigid air swept across the path of the crimson magic, instantly shattering it into countless wisps of vapor that rose and dissipated into the air. At the same moment, Upgrade arrived on the scene. He glanced around, but there wasn't a single machine nearby to merge with. After all, this was a museum. Oh, damn it! Upgrade scratched his head in frustration, then fired twin emerald lasers from his eyes. The beams cut through the air and struck directly at Hex. But even this failed to penetrate Hex's barrier, only sending out a wave of rippling energy. I'll handle this. Big Chill's body dissolved into a shimmering blue silhouette that flickered rapidly as he shot toward Hex. Bertie Mordonata! Hex raised his gray wand. The charm of fire on his chest blazed to life, erupting in a torrent of fierce crimson flames that surged menacingly toward his foe. Yet the fiery wave passed straight through Big Chill's intangible form. Unfazed, the spectral alien radiated an even colder aura. Under Hex's horrified gaze, Big Chill phased directly through the purple barrier. How is this possible? Hex exclaimed, preparing to chant another spell. But before he could, Big Chill was already in front of him. The ghostly figure dove into his body, and in the next instant, ice began to crystallize from within, spreading rapidly outward. Chapter 94: A Transformation Spell? In mere moments, Hex, frozen in shock, was encased in crystal-clear ice. Under the ancient lamplight, his form gleamed with a sinister, chilling light. "'Cuz, you're amazing! You took down that evil wizard in one move!" Gwen's wide, sparkling eyes were filled with awe and excitement. At the same time, curiosity flickered within her. This new alien hero not only had the power to phase through matter but could also control formidable ice. With this alien on their side, catching Ghost Freak next time might finally be possible. Upgrade stepped forward, studying the motionless Hex trapped within the ice sculpture. He smirked. "Buddy, next time you borrow books, remember to visit the library." Sizzle. Suddenly, the charm of fire pendant on Hex's chest flared to life, blazing with golden light. Intense flames burst forth, melting through the layers of ice encasing his body. The crystals dissolved into droplets of water that splashed onto the cold stone floor. "You brat, daring to speak so arrogantly!" As he spoke, Hex lifted his beak-shaped wand, drawing fiery energy from the air in a violent surge. "Bertie Mordonata!" With the incantation, a monstrous bull made of fire materialized before them. Its blood-red eyes glared fiercely, twin horns jutting from its massive head, its colossal body radiating unbearable heat. "Weirdo, let the great hero teach you a lesson!" A green laser burst from the circle on Upgrade's head, scorching the air as it shot straight toward the enemy. "Is that so? Then let me see what you can do!" Hex sneered, flicking his wand. "Moo!" The flaming bull charged forward, its bell-sized eyes overflowing with molten red fire. Despite its size, it moved with terrifying speed, like a blazing locomotive, and roared as it collided head-on with the laser beam. Whoosh! The searing green beam pierced through the bull's fiery body without resistance, continuing its assault toward Hex himself. Hex slammed his gray staff into the ground, conjuring a purple protective shield before him. The raging laser struck it like a furious dragon, cracking it with a web of fractures before the beam finally dispersed into the rising heat. By now, the ferocious fire bull had already stormed toward the stunned upgrade. "Ben, get out of the way!" Grandpa Max shouted. But it was too late. Though enormous, the bull's speed was blinding. Just as the flaming horns were about to impale Upgrade, a blue figure appeared before him, blocking the attack. "Cuz," Upgrade muttered, his eyes flickering. Facing the raging beast, Big Chill exhaled a torrent of icy breath. The frigid air condensed midair into a massive pillar of ice, thick as a tree trunk, which came crashing down on the bull's head. Boom! A thunderous crack echoed as the fiery bull slammed into the ice pillar. Its sharp horns snapped instantly, and the freezing pillar, laden with biting cold, drove straight through its body, piercing it completely. Midair, Big Chill clenched his hand, and the enormous pillar exploded. The fire bull was torn apart in an instant, scattering flaming fragments and shards of ice that rained down like glittering snow. "Awesome!" Upgrade couldn't help but exclaim. "That move was incredible. Way cooler than mine. Cuz, you're amazing. You just took out that giant fire bull," Gwen said in astonishment, her emerald eyes reflecting the flickering dance of ice and flame. "Nice work, Lucian," Grandpa Max added with a rare smile, giving a thumbs up. He didn't hand out praise often. "Damn it, what kind of monster are you?" Hex growled, his voice tight with frustration. "Are you talking about yourself?" Big Chill replied coldly before shifting into his spectral form. A blue humanoid silhouette flared into being, its ethereal wings fluttering like those of a butterfly from an icy realm, as it darted swiftly toward Hex. Panicking, Hex raised his gray wand and conjured several multicolored barriers before him. Layer upon layer stacked together, desperately trying to block the approaching phantom. To defeat Lucian, Hex unleashed every spell he knew, summoning protective enchantments without restraint, anything to stop the assault. But Big Chill, existing in another dimension, was untouchable. His ghostly form phased through Hex's walls of defense with ease, closing the distance between them in an instant. "Wait, I've done nothing to you." Before Hex could finish, Big Chill's spectral form dove into his body, unleashing a torrent of bone-chilling cold that froze him solid in an instant. Within seconds, Hex was encased in ice, his expression frozen in shock, mouth agape as if still trying to speak. Sizzle. A searing hiss cut through the silence. From the fiery pendant on Hex's chest, blazing heat erupted, melting the ice outward from his torso. The intense temperature scorched a gaping hole through the frost, the melting rapidly spreading across his body. In just 2 seconds Hex had freed his upper half. His dark crimson robe was soaked through, clinging to him like the feathers of a drenched bird. He was about to speak when Big Chill's fist smashed straight into his face. Hex screamed, his body flung backward with tremendous force before crashing hard into the wall. At the same time, the charm of bezel around his neck jolted violently, and one of the small glowing stones detached, tumbling into the cold wind. 5 charm stones, one now missing from the center. Slamming into the wall, Hex's face throbbed with pain, too dazed to notice the missing charm. But Big Chill wasn't about to give him a moment's rest. The alien exhaled another wave of freezing air that condensed midair into a storm of icy spears. Each spear gleamed like crystal, slicing through the air with a vicious chill as they shot toward Hex like striking serpents. Ignoring the ache in his body, Hex raised his birdbeak staff once again. Bellum Okoro Missoura! The moment the spell was spoken, 2 massive gray-white hands burst out from the wall behind him. Twisting like giant serpents, they lunged forward, roaring as they reached for the icy spears. Boom! The glittering ice spears collided head-on with the pale stone arms. The impact shattered both into a spray of shards and dust, scattering a glittering storm of ice and stone that drifted slowly to the ground. As the glow faded from the charm on Hex's chest, Big Chill's gaze hardened. His voice was low and rough. "That's a transformation spell." The transformation spell could freely alter the form of objects, and completely control their movement. Just moments ago, Hex had used its power to turn the wall into those enormous arms. While Big Chill analyzed the situation, Upgrade had already charged forward. He clenched his metallic fist tight, the surface rippling like liquid steel, then drove it hard into Hex's abdomen. "You're finished, Mr. Mage." Buzz. In an instant, a surge of purple energy burst from Hex's body, blasting the overconfident Upgrade backward. He smashed through several exhibits, sending glass and debris flying, before finally crashing to the floor and lying motionless amid the wreckage. "Ben!" Grandpa Max shouted, sprinting toward him. "Bertie Mordonata!" Hex incanted again, channeling the power of the charm of fire. A torrent of scorching flames erupted from his wand, roaring straight toward Grandpa Max and the fallen Upgrade. Seeing this, Gwen stepped forward without hesitation. Raising her hands, she summoned a translucent bubble of shimmering water that enveloped them both. Chapter 95: The Rock Creatures. Crackle! Blazing crimson flames lashed like the tongues of a demon dragon, furiously striking against the soft water barrier, threatening to swallow it whole. Gwen gritted her teeth, sweat beading on her forehead as she poured every bit of her magic into holding it back. Steam rose from the water's surface, devoured by the raging flames that were closing in fast. It wouldn't last much longer. Hex chanted louder, his voice echoing as the fire grew even more intense. His magic far outclassed Gwen's. If not for water's natural advantage over fire, she would have already fallen. Such powerful magic! Gwen's brows furrowed, her slender arms trembling as she struggled to keep the barrier stable. Just as she was about to collapse, Big Chill arrived. With one mighty flap of his wings, an icy mist burst forth, instantly smothering the dragon-shaped blaze. Thanks. "Cuz." Gwen sighed in relief, her arms falling limp as exhaustion overtook her. Her eyes rolled back, and she crumpled to the ground, completely unconscious. Big Chill caught her and swiftly dodged a stone spear hurled from behind. In a flash, he appeared in a corner of the museum. At the same time, Upgrade, his systems fully recovered, stood up and carefully set Grandpa Max aside. He moved to stand beside Big Chill, both of them upright and steady as they faced the evil Hex. Hex's expression was cold, his pitch-black eyes fixed on them. "I've already claimed the Arcamida Book of Spells," he said icily. "Once I master it, I'll unlock the full power of the Keystone of Bezel. When that time comes, I'll return to finish you both." With that, the runes on Hex's talisman glowed, lifting him into the air as he turned toward the window. Upgrade's eyes flared, firing a fierce green laser that roared toward him. Thud! In an instant, a violet shield flared behind Hex, easily deflecting the blast. Without slowing, he continued to soar away. Clatter! Big Chill launched a ranged attack, freezing the open window into a solid curtain of blue ice that shimmered like a frozen waterfall, cutting off Hex's escape. Hex raised his gray wand. From its bird-beak tip shot dozens of fiery needles, thin, fast, and deadly, aimed at both of them. "Oh, great!" Upgrade glanced around quickly, then melted into a pool of metallic liquid, merging with a nearby suit of paladin armor. He fired sweeping green lasers to block the storm of fire needles. Big Chill, unfazed, shifted into his phantom form, letting the flames pass harmlessly through him as he surged forward, wrapped in an aura of biting cold. Hex's lips curved slightly, as if expecting this. "Beti Diska!" he chanted. The charms on his chest burst into radiant golden light. Boom! The ground beneath the museum trembled violently as 5 towering stone golems erupted from below. Each stood 5 meters tall, eyes glowing crimson, jagged fangs bared, their pitch-black bodies swirling with thick, sinister magic. The moment they appeared, they let out deafening roars, smashing the floor beneath them as they charged straight toward Grandpa Max and Gwen in the corner. "Ben, hold them off!" Big Chill turned his head. But before he could finish, the Omnitrix on Upgrade's body began to flicker. A blinding red light erupted, and he reverted to Ben's original form. Oh man, this is so uncool! Ben looked down at the Omnitrix trapped in the red screen. You lousy watch, what planet are you even from? Seeing Ben restored, Big Chill's heart sank. He turned to face Hex. Hex let out a cold snort, a smug smile curling his lips. Whether to chase me or save them, that's your call. With those words, Hex shattered the frozen window and flew out without looking back. Ding, alien hacker mission triggered. Rescue the dying Grandpa Max and Gwen to obtain a random enhancement effect. How despicable! Big Chill growled hoarsely, turning to charge at the ferocious stone golems. Meanwhile, in a corner, Grandpa Max scooped up Gwen and tried to flee, but 5 stone golems surrounded him, blocking every path. Though he had plenty of combat experience, he was just an ordinary man without weapons. Faced with these supernatural creatures, he could do nothing. Grandpa! Ben, now back to normal, showed no fear even against these massive magical beings. He grabbed a sword from the ground and swung it with all his strength at one of their legs. Clang! The blade, though seemingly sharp, only struck sparks off the stone golem's body, leaving no mark. One of the golems swung its enormous, rock-solid fist down toward Grandpa Max like a collapsing mountain. Grandpa Max, holding the unconscious Gwen, quickly rolled aside, narrowly escaping the blow. Boom! The golem's punch, carrying mountain-splitting force, smashed a gaping hole through the thick wall. Rubble flew and dust billowed through the air. Seeing their target trying to flee, the 5 monstrous golems raised their arms high, power surging through them as they slammed down together with earth-shaking force. Just as it seemed the two would be crushed, despair filled Grandpa Max's eyes. After decades of battles across the galaxy, was this really how he would die? At the hands of these nobodies? Ben kept slashing wildly, but the golem's stone bodies were too hard, their attack unstoppable. At that critical moment, a blue phantom streaked past like a noble ice spirit, ghostly weaving through the golem's bodies. Crack! 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 Within seconds, the ferocious golems were frozen solid by the icy aura emanating from Big Chill, turning into 5 colossal ice sculptures. The scene was breathtaking. But the golem's raw strength was immense. Their fists clenched as they struggled to break free from the ice. Big Chill let out a cold snort, tapped the Omnitrix on his chest, and transformed into a rapidly spinning yellow metal sphere. He dove straight down, carrying terrifying kinetic energy, crashing into the stone golems below like a blazing storm. Boom! 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 With explosive impact, the 5 golems were shattered to pieces by the spinning yellow sphere. Black stones and ice fragments scattered across the shattered ground. After destroying the golems, the yellow sphere slowed its rotation, stopped, and stood upright, transforming into a chubby, giant fat bear? Chapter 96, Cannabolt. Its plump body had exceptionally thick limbs. Except for its hard, golden-yellow back, the rest of it was grayish-white. What an amazing alien! It can transform into a giant iron ball and roll around, smashing the stone man into pieces. I'll call you Cannabolt! Ben touched its belly and found it surprisingly soft. Cannabolt rested its chin thoughtfully. Not a bad name. I approve. Beneath its hard shell, Cannonbolt's interior was remarkably soft. During combat, it would curl into a yellow sphere, spinning at high speed to deliver lethal blows through sheer kinetic force. At that moment, Gwen's eyelids fluttered slightly as she slowly opened her eyes. Seeing this, Grandpa Max gently lowered her from his arms and carefully supported her. Gwen, how are you feeling? He asked with concern, his gray hair glinting under the light. I'm fine. Gwen shook her head. Just drained too much magic. A good sleep will fix it. Her gaze then swept over the wrecked surroundings. Craters pocked the floor, and huge holes gaped in the walls. It looked as though a terrifying monster had just rampaged through. What happened? I must have missed something. Gwen murmured, dazed. Geek, Lucian saved you. Shouldn't you say something? Ben spread his hands helplessly. Then, Grandpa Max recounted everything that had happened, including the terrifying stone golems. After hearing her grandfather's words, Gwen's face turned pink. She quickly thanked Lucian and threw her arms around him in a tight hug. "Thank you, cuz! You're the best," she said, holding him close. Lucian smiled and gently patted her back. "It's nothing. Grandpa saved you first. If he hadn't carried you out of the way, I might not have arrived in time." "Thank you, Grandpa," Gwen said, her eyes glistening as she looked up at her kind-hearted grandfather. Then she buried her face against Lucian's chest again, holding him tightly and refusing to let go. Ding successfully rescued Grandpa Max and Gwen. Obtained random enhancement effect. Big Chill greatly enhances control over cold energy. Can transform into various animals and plants to attack targets. Note: not merely mimicking a creature's shape but embodying its essence, allowing attacks that carry its natural abilities. Lucian paused, a flicker of delight crossing his eyes. This ability surpassed even Diamond Head's weaponization. In essence, the creatures formed by Big Chill weren't just hollow shapes. For example, if cold energy took the form of a bull, a simple imitation would charge forward stiffly. But with both form and spirit, it could gallop with powerful legs and unleash a true bull's charge. Similarly, if Big Chill condensed into a python, it wouldn't just slam into its enemies. It could open its sharp fangs and viciously bite down. In short, every construct formed from cold energy could attack with the same characteristics as the life form it represented. Of course, that didn't mean Diamond Head was weaker than Big Chill. After a 25% enhancement in crystal hardness, Diamond Head's crystals were far tougher than Big Chill's ice, giving him greater defense and destructive power. If Diamond Head's crystals could do this too, how powerful would he be? Lucian murmured to himself. He imagined a crystal rhinoceros charging at full speed. What a terrifying sight that would be. Right now, he could form a flawless rhinoceros, but it couldn't move. It was still just a lifeless construct. Its crystal limbs were immobile, its power limited and impractical, more effort than reward. Turning it into a weapon was far more useful. Just as the group was about to leave the museum, Ben's sharp eyes caught something. He crouched down and picked up a stone from the rubble. It was dull yellow, etched with intricate patterns. At first glance, it didn't look special at all, just like a cheap trinket from a street stall. "Whoa, look what I found!" Ben's eyes widened, then drooped as he sighed in disappointment. "Just a useless rock. What a waste of my excitement." He started to toss it away. "Hold on." Lucian stopped him, taking the stone from his hand as his gaze sharpened. "This is a charm of luck." After a moment of careful inspection, he spoke slowly. "'Cause what does it do?" Gwen asked curiously. "Whoever wears the charm of luck becomes incredibly fortunate, like being possessed by a luck king," Lucian said with a faint smile. "What's a luck king? Can you eat it?" Ben scratched his head in confusion. "Doofus, 'cause means someone with amazing luck," Gwen said confidently, though she wasn't exactly sure herself what a luck king was supposed to be. "This seems to belong to that evil wizard." Grandpa Max stroked his chin, frowning slightly. "Items of unknown origin shouldn't be used. They could have side effects." "Relax, Grandpa. That wizard looked pretty tough to me, not nearly as scary as you think." Ben shrugged. "But if that evil wizard was wearing the charm of luck, why wasn't he lucky? He seemed pretty normal to me," Gwen said, puzzled. "Maybe he couldn't draw out its power." "Everyone's body works differently," Lucian said with a knowing smile, handing the charm of luck to Gwen. In the original timeline, Hex indeed couldn't use the charm of luck's power, but for some reason, Gwen could. Lucian guessed it was due to the energy within her, allowing her to fully unlock the amulet's magic. Gazing at the charm in her hand, Gwen's eyes lit up in surprise. "Cool! Is this a gift from you, cuz?" "Yes. Only you can bring out its true potential." Lucian nodded. "Thank you, cuz," Gwen said excitedly, clutching the precious charm close, clearly unwilling to part with it. Before long, the group left the ravaged museum, just before the city enforcement team arrived. Late that night, Inside a decaying, dust-covered house, Hex strode quickly to a rickety wooden chair and sat down without hesitation. His face glowed with excitement as he pulled an ancient book from his cloak. The Arcamida Book of Spells! His eyes gleamed. With this, I can finally unleash the full power of the charms of Bezel. He eagerly flipped to the pages describing the pendant chain and began chanting the ancient incantation with fervor. The strange, archaic symbols echoed through the empty, decaying room. Sizzle! A brilliant golden light erupted from Hex's charms of Bezel, dazzling and radiant, as if a divine miracle had descended from the heavens. But just as his excitement peaked, the once blazing charms of Bezel suddenly dimmed without warning, fading like the last light of dusk. No! Hex looked down and froze. One of the pendants was missing. My charm of luck! Where did it go? His bloodshot eyes widened with fury, his expression twisting into madness. Without the complete charms of Bezel, he couldn't channel the supreme magic. I know! Hex snarled, slamming his fist down and shattering the wooden table before him. It must have been those museum brats. They stole my pendant during the fight. Just you wait, you alien freaks. Chapter 97 Luck. The next morning, golden sunlight spread softly across the basketball court as a cool breeze swept through, refreshing and clear. The rust bucket was parked nearby. After leaving the museum yesterday, everyone had come here to rest and recover. Early in the morning, Ben ran over to Lucian's bed with a basketball in his arms. "Cuz, let's go play. It's such a nice day. Play ball?" Lucian, still half asleep, perked up instantly. "Let's go. I'm in." Ever since arriving in this world, he hadn't played basketball once. Back home, he had been a key player on his high school team. He loved the game. Even between classes, during 10-minute breaks, he'd drag his friends out to the court for a few quick shots. The court was empty at dawn, so Lucian and Ben didn't need to wait for a team. They began shooting right away. "Watch me!" Ben gritted his teeth, gripping the ball to his chest before hurling it forward with all his strength. Thud! The ball slammed hard against the backboard and rebounded instantly, landing neatly in Lucian's hands. "Ben, that's not how you play basketball." Lucian smiled lightly, spinning the ball on his fingertip. "Your shooting form matters. It's easier to fix it now than later." Watching the ball spin perfectly, Ben's eyes lit up. "Cuz, teach me. I want to play like you." Over the next half hour, Lucian patiently corrected Ben's shooting form and taught him how to dribble. As he guided Ben, he gradually regained his old rhythm, the ball control, the fluid movement, the precision in every shot. "Looks fun. Can I join?" Gwen walked over, a simple, ancient-looking pendant hanging from her neck. Seeing her, Lucian passed her the ball with a smile. "Gwen, take a shot." Gwen's face flushed as she began dribbling, but her inexperience quickly showed. The ball slipped from her hands again and again. "All right, just give it a try," Lucian said, barely holding back a laugh. Ben smirked at the sight. "Relax, that nerd's not making a shot. She looks like she couldn't lift a chicken. Doofus! I'm a karate master," Gwen huffed, tossing the ball in defiance. But she was too far from the hoop, and with just one hand, the ball didn't even reach the two-point line before diving straight toward the ground. Woof! Out of nowhere, a playful golden retriever broke free from its leash, sprinting under the falling ball. With a strong leap, it headed the ball back into the air, straight toward the hoop. Swish! The ball traced a perfect arc and dropped cleanly through the net. "Oh yeah! Who's the best?" Gwen cheered, grinning triumphantly at her cousin. Ben's jaw nearly hit the floor. "No way, that actually went in. Total dumb luck." Even Lucian was stunned. The effect of that charm was unbelievable. He noticed the charm of luck around Gwen's neck glowing faintly with golden light. It looked truly magical. "That was just luck," Ben muttered, refusing to believe it. He glared at the smug Gwen. "If you're so good, do it again." Gwen snorted. "Doofus, watch and learn." She stepped back to the three-point line, turning her back to the hoop. A backward three-pointer. Lucian's eyes narrowed. Scoring from that range wasn't hard, but hitting it backward? That took impossible precision. Holding the ball in one hand, Gwen flicked it powerfully over her shoulder toward the hoop. Whoosh! A strange gust of wind swept across the court, slowing the ball's momentum. It started to drop, falling short, straight toward the one-point line. Just when it looked like a total miss, the golden retriever appeared again. Tongue lolling, it leapt up, bumping the ball skyward with its head. Whoosh! The ball ricocheted off the side of the rust bucket, bounced onto a nearby sun-dried mattress, then sprang upward, landing on an overhead cable. A sudden gust blew through, rolling the ball along the wire directly above the hoop. It dropped, and swish! Perfectly through the basket again. Ben stood frozen, eyes bulging in disbelief. Is this even possible? How about that, doofus? Gwen clapped her hands and laughed. It was just luck, Ben said, waving it off, clearly refusing to admit defeat. The power of that charm of luck is unreal, Lucian murmured to himself. Could using magic that strong really come without any side effects? Just then, Gwen yawned, looking a bit drowsy. I'm getting sleepy again, cuz. You guys keep playing. With that, she turned to leave. Suddenly, a sharp cry rang out from nearby. Help! Someone's stealing my purse! Everyone turned toward the voice. A fashionable middle-aged woman was sprinting after a group of young men, panic written across her face. About 5 or 6 of them stood together, their hair dyed in every color imaginable. They looked like a mismatched cartoon team. Piercings, skinny jeans, flashy outfits, the textbook definition of street punks. Hero time! Ben shouted, rushing behind the rust bucket. He slammed the Omnitrix, but no matter how hard he pressed, it wouldn't pop up. Come on, you stupid watch! Meanwhile, Gwen, who had seen the robbery, had already dashed forward to block the thugs. Lucian tried to stop her, but she didn't hear him and charged straight ahead. With no other choice, Lucian ran to the rust bucket, pressed the Omnitrix, switched to an alien hero, and slammed his hand down. Thud! A flicker of green light flashed and quickly faded. He looked down at his tiny hands, then up at the rust bucket, which now seemed impossibly huge beside him. Gray matter! Chapter 98, Mealworm Sandwich. Gwen stood in front of the thugs, pointing at the designer bags in their hands. Stealing other people's stuff is wrong. Give them back. Little girl, mind your own business. Yeah, get lost. Or you're gonna regret it. The group of thugs sneered, not taking the little girl seriously in the slightest. Gwen clenched her fists, gritting her teeth as she tried to think of a way to snatch the bags back. One of the thugs, annoyed by the woman still chasing from behind, lifted the steel pipe in his hand and strode toward Gwen with a vicious glare. Get out of my way, kid! As he shouted, the silver steel pipe gleamed with a cold light, slicing through the air as it swung down toward her. Gwen reacted quickly, dodging to the side, only for her foot to land squarely on a stray soy milk cup. Splat! A jet of warm, milky liquid burst out of the cup, splattering right across the nearby bun vendor's face. Startled, the vendor instinctively covered his cheek, only to burn his hand on the hot soy milk. With a pained grunt, he lashed out, kicking the bun cart in front of him with full force. Thud! The iron cart, loaded with steaming buns, shot forward with terrifying speed, its 4 wheels spinning wildly as it barreled straight ahead. Ah! The thug who had attacked Gwen was hit squarely by the cart, sent flying through the air before crashing to the ground in a heap, completely motionless. Gwen blinked in surprise, then looked down at the charm of luck around her neck. It was glowing again, golden light shimmering across its surface. Cool! The remaining thugs exchanged uneasy looks before their faces twisted in rage. They charged at her together, eyes filled with malice. Damn brat! You hurt my buddy! You're dead! Don't get cocky just because you got lucky! As the thugs surrounded her, Gwen straightened her stance, a confident smile tugging at her lips. Come on, then. Let's see how unlucky you can get. Watch this. The red-haired thug snarled, baring his teeth as he swung a powerful punch at her. The air whistled from the sheer force of it. Gwen's eyes flickered, and she prepared to dodge. But before the thug even reached her, his foot slipped out from under him. He stumbled backward, landing hard on his rear with a loud thud, his face twisting in agony. The sight left Grey Matter, who had been watching from a short distance, completely dumbfounded. Looks like I don't even need to get involved, he muttered, standing at the edge of the basketball court with a shrug. Thud! Suddenly, a flash of green light burst from behind him. Ruhar! A fierce, beastly roar echoed overhead. Grey Matter looked up to see a massive, fiery red creature soaring past, blocking out the golden morning sun. Wildmutt! Grey Matter scratched his head and sat cross-legged on the ground. With the charm of luck and Ben transformed into Wildmutt, taking down a few street punks was hardly a problem. After transforming, Lucian felt his mind working sharper and faster, his thoughts clear and composed, more rational than ever. By now, only 4 thugs were left standing. The other 2 were already out of commission. Damn it, you witch! The blue-haired thug growled, eyes flashing with rage. He hurled the broadsword in his hand and charged straight at Gwen. Gwen froze, stunned. She had never faced such a deadly weapon before. The charm of luck hanging from her neck shimmered faintly with golden light. Roar! Just as the sharp blade was about to strike her, Wildmutt lunged forward. With a powerful bite, he clamped down on the whistling weapon and landed firmly on all 4s, turning to face the remaining thugs. Roar! The deafening roar, combined with Wildmutt's savage appearance, sent the rest of the thugs scrambling. They grabbed their injured friends and bolted, too terrified to look back. Gwen noticed the Omnitrix symbol on Wildmutt's arm and instantly recognized him as Ben. Lucian's transformations always had the emblem on his chest. Nice work. Gwen patted Wildmutt's fur, as if giving a dog an approving head rub. Feeling the odd gesture, Wildmutt growled playfully and kicked up a storm of dust and sand, covering Gwen's face completely. Ah! You doofus! She coughed, waving her hands helplessly as the dust made her choke. Wildmutt grinned smugly, then dashed off toward the rust bucket with long, powerful strides. But just as he reached the road, the roar of an engine split the air. A purple Lamborghini came barreling down the street, tearing through the air at breakneck speed and heading straight for Wildmutt's side. Clearly, the car was way over the speed limit. Wildmutt's eyes widened. He sprang upward like a coiled spring, leaping high into the air. Almost at the same moment, the Lamborghini thundered past below, its wind pressure slashing across Wildmutt's face, stinging his skin. Watch out! Came Grey Matter's sharp voice from nearby. Boom! Before Wildmutt could even land properly, a Rolls-Royce Phantom slammed into him from the side. He was sent flying like a kite with its string cut, tumbling across the ground before finally crashing into the grassy median. Shaking his head, Wildmutt got back on his feet, growled lowly, and took off running back toward the rust bucket. Ben! Gwen shouted, dashing across the road to chase after him. Grey Matter, still sitting by the basketball court, shrugged and tapped the Omnitrix on his chest. A flash of green light burst out as his small body swelled like a balloon, transforming into XLR-8. Swish! Moving as light as the wind, XLR-8 turned into a blue streak, arriving inside the rust bucket in the blink of an eye. He tapped the Omnitrix slightly again, reverting to his human form, Lucian. A few seconds later, Wildmutt came running back, with Gwen sprinting close behind. By that time, Grandpa Max was already up, preparing a protein-rich breakfast. His expression was kind, a gentle smile crossing his face now and then. When Lucian and the others get back from basketball, they'll be starving. He chuckled. Perfect timing to try my rice worm sandwiches. Suddenly, he heard a sound behind him. His face hardened as his hand instinctively reached for his waist, only to find it empty. He sighed softly and turned around, only to see Lucian standing there. Lucian, back already? Grandpa Max blinked in surprise. Where are Ben and Gwen? They're right behind me. No sooner had he spoken than a low growl from Wildnut and Gwen's shouting came from outside. Moments later, the two burst into the RV. Ben, Gwen, what happened? Grandpa asked, puzzled. Gwen quickly explained everything that had just happened. That was too dangerous, Gwen, Grandpa said sternly. You can't be so reckless next time. You're just a little girl. Relax, Grandpa. I'm the lucky girl, Gwen said with a light laugh. Oh yeah? Miss Lucky here nearly got me run over, Ben grumbled, crossing his arms in irritation. Gwen huffed. That's what you get for teasing me. Karma's real, Lucian spoke up calmly. It seems the charm of luck's power is unpredictable. For now, at least, we can't control it. When they fought the thugs earlier, Ben's Omnitrix had jammed, and Lucian had been forced into his weakest form, gray matter. If that had happened in a real battle, it could have been fatal. Lucian suspected that the charm of luck didn't create fortune on its own. Instead, it absorbed the luck of those nearby and redirected it toward its wearer. While it greatly benefited the one who wore it, it drained the fortune of everyone around them, potentially causing dangerous consequences. All right, kids, enough of that for now, Grandpa said, waving his hand dismissively. Let's eat breakfast first. These rice worm sandwiches are one of a kind, can't find them anywhere else. Chapter 99, The Haunted House. Grandpa set a tray of his special sandwiches on the table. Between the bread layers squirmed a dense cluster of white rice worms, writhing non-stop, enough to make Lucian's scalp prickle. Oh man, gross! Ben grimaced in horror. Grandpa, I'm not hungry. Maybe later. Same here, Gwen added quickly. She'd rather face down dangerous villains than eat anything Grandpa cooked. Grandpa's expression darkened instantly, just as he was about to speak. Zzzt. A faint crackle came from the Rust Bucket's radio, followed by a male news reporter's voice. Strange things happen every year, but this year's especially bizarre. Breaking news! An old, famous haunted house in the city is reportedly experiencing real paranormal activity. Over a dozen tourists are trapped inside, unable to escape. Local authorities have already arrived to assist in rescue efforts. We'll keep you updated as the story develops. Ben's eyes gleamed mischievously as he raised his wrist. Hero time. Let's move out, Grandpa said without hesitation, sliding into the driver's seat and firing up the engine. And me too. Gwen paused, then turned and ran back to her little wardrobe. Moments later, she slipped into the bathroom carrying a bundle of something. That dweeb, what's she up to now? Ben muttered, shrugging as he tore open a bag of Sumo Slammers cereal. About half an hour later, the Rust Bucket pulled up to their destination. The ancient mansion loomed before them, radiating an eerie, bone-chilling presence even from afar. No wonder it was known as the city's most haunted house. It stood 6 stories tall, roughly 20 meters high, with pale walls draped in dead, yellowed ivy that clawed across the surface like demonic fingers reaching for their prey. Outside the gates, a heavily armed squad of law enforcement officers stood ready to breach the mansion. Suddenly, a beam of crimson light shot out from inside, striking the 2 demon statues flanking the entrance. In an instant, the stone figures came alive, their eyes igniting with blood-red light as they spread razor-sharp claws and lunged at the officers. Whoosh! 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 Startled officers unleashed a storm of yellow laser fire, bullets flying like rain. But the barrage merely bounced off. Their attacks might as well have been tickling the demons. One of the statues, a goat-faced demon with a humanoid body, leapt into the crowd like a wolf among sheep, tearing through the ranks in a brutal frenzy. Within moments, over a dozen officers had fallen. Completely outmatched, the remaining squad retreated in disarray, calling for reinforcements. Once the 2 monstrous statues had cleared the area, they didn't pursue. Instead, they returned to their posts by the entrance, the red glow in their eyes fading as they froze once more into lifeless stone. Ben was the first out of the rust bucket, slamming down on the Omnitrix. Time for the heroes to make their entrance. Lucian and Grandpa Max followed behind. And me! Came a confident, melodic voice from behind them. They turned, and froze in surprise. At some point, Gwen had swapped her usual blue outfit for a sleek black combat suit. A half-mask covered the upper half of her face, and her poised stance carried the unmistakable aura of a modern-day warrior. "Gwen, what's going on?" Grandpa asked in confusion. "Call me Lucky Girl, Grandpa." Gwen placed her hands on her hips, her voice brimming with confidence as she strode boldly toward the haunted mansion. The others exchanged glances, then followed. Recalling the statues that had come to life earlier, Lucian suspected it was the work of the charms of Bezel. Hex had to be inside. When they reached the doors, the two demon statues remained still, as though the group wasn't their target. Lucky Girl pushed open the door, her eyes narrowing sharply. Inside the grand hall, terrified tourists were bound to stone pillars. 3 rock monsters guarded them, their stony faces twisted in hostility as they scanned the room. The tourists trembled, tears streaming down their faces. They wanted to scream for help, but didn't dare make a sound, afraid of provoking the monstrous guards. "Don't be afraid, everyone. Lucky Girl is here to save you." Gwen's voice rang out firm and clear as she prepared to charge forward. "Heh!" A thin, shadowy figure appeared by the window. Lucian turned toward the sound, unsurprised by the arrival. "Hex. You again, huh? Time for the great hero to give you a serious beating." Ben slammed his hand onto the Omnitrix after selecting an alien form. A flash of bright green light burst out. In the next instant, 4 arms launched forward like a fired cannonball, charging straight at Hex. "Stop him!" Hex barked, raising his staff and commanding the rock monsters to advance. They surged toward 4 arms, engaging him in a fierce brawl. At the same time, Lucian's body glowed with a ghostly green light as he transformed into Humungosaur. Just as he was about to charge at Hex, the sorcerer sneered. The charm on his chest pulsed violently before unleashing a crimson beam. It streaked past Humungosaur and struck the demon statues outside the door. Buzz! The once lifeless stone demons came alive, their eyes flaring red with murderous intent. With heavy, earth-shaking steps, they turned and stomped into the mansion. "Go! Tear him apart!" Hex roared, waving his staff as he directed the 2 demons toward Humungosaur. Meanwhile, Lucky Girl had silently crept up behind him. Her small fist clenched tight, she drew back her arm and swung with all her strength. But in an instant, Hex spun around with lightning speed, as if he had eyes on his back, and caught her by the wrist in a crushing grip. "Little girl," he said coldly, his voice low and mocking. "Before absolute power, your tricks mean nothing." Chapter 100: The Tunnel. "Let go of me!" Lucky Girl gasped, kicking frantically as she struggled to break free from Hex's grip. By sheer coincidence, her foot landed on a hidden trigger in the haunted house. The ancient bricks beneath them sank inward with a sharp crack. With a deafening rumble, the floor gave way. Countless chunks of stone and clouds of thick dust collapsed along with them, plunging both into the darkness below. As they fell, the charm of luck hanging at Gwen's chest flared to life, its glow surrounding her in a faint golden shimmer. By sheer fortune, every falling brick narrowly missed her, allowing her to land safely in a shadowy underground passage. Hex wasn't so lucky. A heap of heavy stones crashed down upon him, burying him completely under the rubble. Gwen looked up toward the hole above, planning to use the pile of rocks pinning Hex down as leverage to climb back up. But before she could move, threads of radiant gold light began seeping from the cracks in the debris. "The evil sorcerer is breaking free!" she exclaimed. Without a moment's hesitation, Lucky Girl turned and sprinted deeper into the tunnel. Boom! The next instant, the massive stone pile exploded apart. From within the dust and rubble emerged a golden energy barrier, its surface shimmering faintly as it pulsed with dense magical power. Hex's face was dark with fury as he hovered inside the shield. His eyes flashed, and waves of raw mana surged outward, shattering every last piece of stone around him. Charm of luck, you will never escape me! Shrouded in a sinister purple glow, Hex rose from the debris and shot down the tunnel after her, determined to reclaim the pendant. Inside the haunted house above, rows of white candles lined the walls, their blue flames flickering like ghostly will-o'-the-wisps. Grandpa Max moved quickly between the tall stone pillars, working deftly to free the terrified tourists bound there. The thrill-seekers, who had already given up hope, burst into tears of relief at the sight of their rescuers, thanking them over and over. But the moment their restraints were cut, they bolted for the exit, not daring to linger for fear of getting caught in the chaos of battle. 3 hulking rock monsters towered over the hall, their bodies etched with eerie purple markings. Each punch they threw carried immense power, making the very air wail with every swing. Ben, in his 4-arms form, was caught in a grueling fight. He narrowly dodged one monster's blow, only for the other 2 to rush him together, locking him in a crushing hold. Their combined weight pressed down so hard he could barely breathe, forcing him to struggle just to stay standing. All right, you've officially made me mad, 4-arms growled. He clenched his massive fists and swung with full force. The air cracked with the sound of impact as his red arms became blurs, battering the rock monster in front of him and driving it backward. Then he lunged sideways, grabbing another monster by the neck. With a brutal twist, he crushed it with a deafening crack. The golem's head flew free, its massive body convulsing twice before stiffening and collapsing to the cold stone floor. Now you know not to mess with me, losers! But before he could celebrate, another rock monster tackled him from behind, knocking him flat as they rolled across the ground, locked in another fierce struggle. Meanwhile, the battle between Humongosaur and the demonic statues was reaching its climax. The towering alien's thick, brownish-yellow skin gleamed under the dim light as he moved, raw strength radiating from every motion. One of the demonic statues, its eyes blazing blood-red, lunged at him with razor-sharp claws. Humongosaur roared and met it head-on, throwing a punch that collided squarely with its strike. Boom! The impact shattered the demon's claws instantly, the sheer force blasting apart its entire stone arm. Shards of rock and dust exploded through the air, scattering across the floor like a rain of gravel. Roar! The demon statue bellowed in rage, baring its jagged fangs as it clamped its massive hands onto Humongosaur's shoulders, lunging to bite at his neck. In that instant, Humongosaur spotted its opening, its chest and abdomen were completely exposed. Just as the demon's fangs were about to sink into him, its entire body froze, trembling violently. From the back of its chest, a thick, powerful arm burst through. Humongosaur's brute strength had punched clean through its body, leaving a gaping hole straight through its core. Roar! Another demon statue swooped down, leaping high into the air like a hunting hawk diving toward its prey. Humongosaur grabbed the corpse of the first demon and hurled it upward with tremendous force. Boom! The 2 collided midair with a thunderous crash, shattering into a rain of stone shards that scattered across the hall, crumbling into dust beneath the eerie blue glow of the ghostly flames. With the demon statues destroyed, Humongosaur turned and saw that 4-arms was still in the middle of a brutal fight. 2 hulking rock monsters were trading relentless blows, their colossal fists hammering down on him from both sides. Humongosaur's eyes hardened. He charged forward, swung his massive tail in a sweeping arc, and smashed one of the rock monsters into rubble, bringing the fight to a swift end. Oh man, these rock freaks are strong, 4-arms muttered, scratching his head. Humongosaur shook his. They're just strong, not skilled. You still need more battle experience. In terms of pure strength, these rock monsters were far weaker than the demon statues. Their huge size gave them brute force, but it came at the cost of speed. Slow, clumsy puppets with power but no finesse. Ben, still in his 4-arms form, had been too focused on overpowering them directly. Going head-to-head against 3 tireless, pain-immune golems naturally left him struggling. Looks like Gwen's gone down the tunnel. Grandpa Max stood beside the collapsed opening, his expression grim. That evil sorcerer went after her. Then we'd better move fast, Gwen's in danger. Without another word, Grandpa Max jumped down into the dark tunnel below. Humongousaur and Four Arms exchanged a glance, then sprinted forward and leapt in after him. In the cold, silent tunnel below, a tense chase was already unfolding. Lucky Girl, half her face hidden behind a black mask, moved quietly through the shadows. Her dark combat suit blended almost perfectly with the walls around her. The passage was dim, lit only by the faint flicker of scattered candles. Gwen breathed heavily, eyes darting around as she searched for any possible exit. She knew she couldn't take Hex head-on. Her best chance was to find a way out and regroup with her cuz and the others. Beatty, Boda, Naka! A familiar voice suddenly echoed from the wall beside her. Boom! Before Gwen could react, the stone wall exploded outward. The force of the blast threw her backward violently. From the dust stepped Hex, clutching his gray wand, flames flickering ominously around his body. Lucky Girl, he sneered. You can't escape me. He looked down at Gwen lying on the ground and began chanting an ancient incantation. With a low rumble, thick vines burst from the floor, made entirely of stone. They twisted and writhed like serpents, lashing wildly in every direction. Under Hex's control, the stone vines shot toward Gwen all at once. Water Dragon Soul! In an instant, a roaring water dragon materialized in front of her, its serpentine form twisting and coiling as it surged forward to meet the storm of stone vines head-on. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated in Ben 10 World as Ben's cousin. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released 1 day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.